Hello, everyone. Getting this all up and going for us today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about transitioning from college to career. My name is Addye Buckley-Burnell. I'm the Associate Director of Career Development, and we've been working with you all week about all the things you need to do as graduating seniors about transitioning out of school and into the workplace, how to get that job. Now, the problem is the transition into the workplace is sometimes one of the most difficult transitions that people experience. You have already experienced a big transition coming into college, right? You know, that was not easy to transition from high school and living with family into a college environment and transitioning to the different types of classes and time management, study habits. That wasn't easy, but you survived it, right? You did it. You challenge accepted. You made it through. You are now about to hit another big transition. And this transition is often met with some resistance and be met with a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, and a lot of change. You have been in school your entire life. You probably don't remember a time when you didn't have school to go to, where you didn't have the social interaction or the people that are involved in that, teachers, parents telling you what you needed to do and when. The transition into the workplace will be taking that away. And that is a loss that many people have to kind of process and learn from and accept. Your social section will transition. Some of you may be moving closer to friends, which is great. Some of you may be moving close to family, which is great. Some of you may be moving fully away, which is also great. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. But realize that in school, your entire life, you have developed friendships and your social circle tends to be associated with school or your after school activities. When you transition to the workplace, that might look a little different. And so setting up that expectation that this transition is exciting, is new, is different, is not a bad thing. But also being realistic that you might experience some feelings of loss, some feelings of loneliness, some feelings of complete unknown that may be a little bit more new to you, and accepting that and being okay with that and processing through that. So we're going to talk today a little bit about how to make the most of that first year. And, you know, I could show you PowerPoints and do all that, but I'm just going to talk with you. Don't mind me, I'm drinking my tea. And I'm just going to give you some information about what that first year may look like and how to do it successfully. So when we're thinking about starting a new job, a new location, new anything, we have to prepare ourselves to be successful. When you started college, you probably went out and got the right textbooks and you got stuff for your first apartment or your dorm, or you tried to research what was going on around there with any organizations you might be involved in. The same thing needs to happen for your transition into the workplace. Do some research. Understand as much as you can about the company culture before you get there so that you don't make mistakes that many people make in their first year. Some of those mistakes include not being professional enough. And so for the first few days, the first few weeks, I typically will recommend erring on the side of caution and being more professional, more dressed appropriately, or more dressed professionally, more conservative than you would typically. All right. So that means dressing up a little bit more than maybe what everyone else is wearing, being a little more timely, staying a little bit later, getting there a little bit earlier. So being early and leaving, staying a little late, smart moves for the first few weeks, at least. Okay. Being prepared, being on time for meetings, being on time for everything that's going on. Understanding that unlike college, where you have pretty free reign of your time, realizing that you taking frequent breaks or going to go get coffee frequently and doing all of those types of things may not be looked quite as fondly as when you were in college. So be aware of how others may be perceiving you, and especially those first few weeks watching. you, determining sizing you up, determining who you are in the workplace. What I would encourage you to do is to find a model, right? Who is that employee that's being commended by management? Who is that person that seems like they really have it together, that people go to for help in your life? Who is that person that you look up to, who you aspire to be like? If that's in your family, great. If that's outside, great. Start making a list of the qualities that you respect in them. What are the things that really shine through? Typically, the greatest leaders demonstrate some common elements. The aspect of integrity, all right, that they're going to follow through with what they say. The respect for those around them, whether you are somebody who is in the same level position above them, below them, they are respectful and appreciative and courteous. Typically, people who have integrity and lead well show appreciation, show respect, show acknowledgement for the contributions of others. Those are attributes, or the attributes that you're seeing in the people that you respect are the attributes you want to emulate in your first job. So do so purposefully. Do so knowing that that is the brand that you are creating for yourself. Now, you hear about personal brand, it starts from day one. How do you want to be known? What do you want to be known for? And start setting that standard now. Be courteous, be friendly, be professional. Don't bring a whole lot of your personal items in day one. Those are things that you might want to kind of bring in as you see what the company culture is like. Observe. The first few weeks, the first month, first 6 months, you should be observing the dynamics of the organization. Who's really in charge here? All right. Who is really making the decisions? Who is it that's annoying everyone? Who is it that's actually doing the work? Who is it that's, leading the charge? Who is it that has the ideas? Who is it the person that you can trust? Those are the things that you got to pay attention to because it may not be as obvious. All right. Think about the dynamics of any organization you've been a part of. Think of the dynamics of your high school. The people who seem like they're in charge may not be the real people in charge. The people who seem like they're the friendliest may not be the most trustworthy. It's just not easy always to determine. So before you start trusting and confiding in people, know who they are. Sit back, observe, and determine who you want to align yourself with for success. Try to volunteer as much as you can those first few months. Be the go-getter. Be the person that people go to for help. And if they are not coming to you for help, go and offer help. Be the person that people want to have in the room. All right. And that person is not going to have to be the person that knows everything. And I think one of the common misconceptions that new professionals have is that they have to come in knowing everything and that they have to come in as experts. And I promise you, no one expects you to. I promise you, the people that you work with want you to be aware of the fact that you don't know everything. And coming in as if you do, and that you are coming in to rule the place and you will make every positive change is actually going to frustrate the people you work with. So go in being aware, being willing to ask questions. I mean, not every minute, but be willing to ask questions. Be willing to ask for help. That's okay. Now, you cannot ask the same person for help all the time. You cannot be bugging people, but asking questions, asking for help if you need it after you've already tried to find a solution is a good thing. Resist the urge of offering up all of your suggestions in your first meeting. Even if they seem obvious, even if they seem like, I can't believe you guys weren't already doing this. Do not assume they weren't already being done. Do not assume they haven't already been tried. Observe, listen. Before you start offering up ideas, I encourage you to start thinking about people who are senior to the office and running things by them before you may offer them up in a meeting. All right. Now, don't tell them all of your ideas all at once. But try to find somebody who you could ask for advice from in your office. Now, it could be a mentor, or it could just be somebody who's been there, who has seen it, who's willing to kind of chat with you a little bit, and might be willing to be a sounding board for you. They could tell you if things have been tried before, and before you bring it up in a meeting, they could, maybe stop you from making a mistake. There's stuff that people who've been there for a while can share with you that will be helpful. So be the go-to person, volunteer to help, offer ideas once you know what it's been like, and probably not your first week, okay? It's okay to make friends in the office. It's okay to have social interactions in the office, but remember that they may not always be your friend, okay? There's a difference between a work acquaintance and a friend. There are plenty of people who make very good friends in a work environment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't make the assumption that they are. Don't start friending them on every social media platform. Don't start following them on Instagram if you haven't built that relationship of trust, because you never know who is actually your friend or somebody who's might be looking out for only their own personal interest. Okay, so be cautious but friendly. Be willing to be professional friends for the time being. Avoid the urge of gossiping. Even if somebody's coming to you to gossip, try not to be the person that people go to gossip. All right. Don't be the person that is caught up in the drama. Everybody will tell you they are not big fans of office drama, but some people live in it. And so be aware that gossip can lead to drama, and you probably don't want to be associated with that. So if somebody comes to you with gossip or comes to you always talking about somebody, you may want to set that boundary early of, I'm happy to talk to you about anything work related, but I'd really prefer to avoid talking badly about one of my colleagues. Right? That's okay. It's okay to set those boundaries so that that is not something that's repeated. Ask questions, begin forming ideas. But from day one, I want you to start setting some goals for yourself. What are things that you want to achieve? What do you want to be known for? What are things that you want this experience? What do you want to take from this experience? And start forming plans of how to reach those goals. Start forming measurable outcomes. Let other people know of those goals so that you are actually being held accountable. But start setting those goals early on so that you are constantly working towards something better. Now, here are some tips for that first top 10 tips for your first year of success. Tip number one, you choose your attitude. If you choose to go to work upset and grumpy and always in a bad mood, that's going to be the attitude that you stick with, and that's going to be what you're known for. So choose your attitude. Do you want to be somebody who's positive, who is somebody that people go to for help, who can be relied on to be a positive influence? Or do you want to be somebody who is known as somebody who is not fun to be around? Adjust your expectations. This may not be your dream job, and that's okay. Not every is going to be your dream job. Every job is going to have work involved. Okay. And realize that that concept of if you were doing what you love, you'll never work a day not. No, that's just not true. You're going to work. There's going to be days that tasks are not what you want them to be. But as long as you're working towards something better, as long as you have a goal in mind, typically not so bad. So adjust your expectations. This may simply be a stepping stone, and that's okay. Understand the company culture. Understand what it is. Is this a company that everybody works on their own and you have to set meetings to speak with people? Or is this a company that you are going to be able to go into somebody else's space and ask questions openly? Right? What is this company culture? Do people hang out outside of work? Do they not? Adjust your, understand that as much as you can. Manage your first impression. Your first impression is a hard one to overcome. They say it takes 21 more meetings before you overcome that first impression. So arrive early, arrive professionally, be courteous, respectful, make sure that you are learning people's names. That's the stuff that will matter. I typically will actually recommend that you set meetings with people in your organization that don't even work necessarily with you, to get to know them, to know more about what they do, to understand what their contributions are. The more they feel seen, the more they're going to remember you. Okay. So the more you listen to others, the more they remember you. Important tools. Develop organizational savvy. So know how to work the system sometimes, and it's a skill that you will develop, I promise. But it's something that you'll have to pay attention to. How do things actually get done? Okay? It may not be as easy as the book tells you. Become a good follower. In the first job, you are probably not going to be the lead. But make sure you know who you're following. All right. Who is setting the tone for what you're doing? Don't let their bad habits become your bad habits. Okay. Be authentically you in a professional setting. So don't be afraid to be who you are, but a polished version or a professional version, maybe a little less profanity or maybe a little less, uh, loud. Make sure that we are staying in a professional framework. Be authentically you. Adapt to your environment as much as you can. That can be hard, but try to be a part of the environment and not somebody who ruffles the environment. Build effective relationships. Okay. That means authentic relationships. Be a true version of who you are. Build relationships with people who are going to help you grow. Know how you operate, learn how you operate. I mean, that's not always something you're going to know right away, but know how you work best and pair yourself with people who are different to make the most of that environment. Diverse teams are the most effective teams. They get the most accomplished. They are the most achieving teams. So diversify your team. Different perspectives, different skill sets are going to be your key to success. Understand your new hire status, which means that you're no longer a student. Okay. And that's a hard transition, which means you are going to have to understand how to operate. You've been in a setting of learning from an instructor, learning from a teacher your entire life. Now you're going to be in an environment where it's not, the same expectations are not going to hold. You are not going to have a syllabus and an assignment sheet with all the guidelines stipulated. You are not going to have somebody giving you consistent feedback. You are not going to have that. You are going to have to learn to acknowledge the fact that sometimes no feedback is a good thing. That if you're not being told you're doing it wrong, that's probably a sign that you're doing it well. So that's stuff that you have to adjust to, and it's hard. Master the tasks of your job, and that takes time, and give yourself the grace and time to do that. And realize that right now it looks a little different than every other time. Know what you want to be known for. What are the things that you do well? What are the things you want to achieve? What are the qualities of the people you admire? What are your values? That's stuff that's going to inform who you are and what you become. So some of the common mistakes that people make are not being their true authentic self, trying to be this character of a professional. That is the truest way to show that you have what people refer to as imposter syndrome or imposter thoughts. When you are this caricature of who you are in a workplace setting, and that's a very quick way to not feel like you're being true to you or that you're not worthy of being there. You are worthy. You have earned that job. You have proven your abilities. You have earned a degree. You are worthy of being there. So don't let anyone take that away from you. Realize that they hired you to be who you are, not who someone else is. And so this vision of what this professional needs to look like or what they have to be wearing or looking like, of course you need to follow set, code as far as professional attire, but you do not have to look like everyone else. Not everybody has to look the same to be a professional. Not everyone has to talk the same or do things the same way. So be a professional version of who you are. And that is hard sometimes to navigate, but important. Some other common mistakes: being too friendly too fast, assuming everybody is your friend or in the same boat. And that's not always the case. This is a professional setting too. So realize that sexual harassment is a big thing. Microaggressions are big things. So be very cognizant of how you're acting, how you're speaking to people, how you're behaving, because those interactions will dictate how people see you. Your social media connections and connecting to people and sharing things online that could hurt you in the workplace, that could cost you your job. That could cost you your future. So be very careful on what you put out there and what you let people in your workplace see. Okay. Set your profiles to private. I wouldn't advise friending everyone, because if you post something that doesn't align with your company, that could actually cost you your position. And we're in a very interesting gray area of how that works legally. But right now, it definitely is costing people jobs. So be careful what's being put online about you and how you're going to be viewed based on it. So good rule of thumb: don't post anything online you wouldn't show to your grandmother. Okay. You wouldn't want that to be seen in the workplace. Don't have friends on social media or followers on social media who you work with. Trusting the wrong people. Just because you work with people in the same office does not mean they're out for your best interest or that they're going to be willing to give you credit for your ideas. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't trust everyone you work with everything. Navigate that. Navigate the workplace. Understand how it works before you start sharing. Coming off as a know-it-all is a real common issue for new professionals because they're trying to prove themselves. So sit back, observe for a while before you start coming up with all your 5,000 ideas. Sit back, ask questions, understand before you come up with your ideas. And being seen as a threat. If people think that you are out for their job, if people think that you are out for only you, they'll see you as a threat, and that is not going to work in your benefit. So build alliances, build trust, give credit where credit is due. Somebody helps you, thank them and acknowledge it. Do not take advantage of the people that you work with that way. So understanding how you act in the workplace is step one. Step two is conveying that in all interactions. And that includes things like email. So we're going to talk a little bit about email etiquette here. And I think that this is a very important piece that I could talk about for a very long time. But email etiquette, we know that your email is how you communicate in so many settings now, right? We email all the time. We have thousands of emails. We probably have multiple email accounts. When it comes to work email, it needs to only be for work, okay? So unlike your school email address where you probably gave that out for other things, your work email should only be for work because it actually becomes property of your employer. So anything that gets submitted or coming through or whatever is actually being saved by your employer. So be careful what you send throughout your work email. You should always have an email signature, and your email signature is something you set within the email account, whether that be Google or Outlook or whatever the case is for your employer. And it should include your name, your title, an email address, and a phone number typically. Avoid the extra stuff, the Bible verses, the favorite quote, added pictures. Avoid it. Only include the professional contact information here. Now, when you write an email, you are going to always include a subject line, okay? The subject line of an email is going to be something that should be easily searchable. So it shouldn't just be something like question. Make sure that the subject line pertains to what it is that you're going to be referencing, okay? And easily searchable for those who are going to be reading it. When you are writing an email, write incomplete sentences. Spell check. Always have your spell check on. I'm a big believer in Grammarly. Grammarly allows for it to kind of check automatically. And anything you do online, helpful. Understand that your tone may not come across the way you want it to. Okay. For that reason, my favorite resource, how to say it. This is a great resource to write emails in a tone that you would want it to be expressed in. Gives you words and phrases to overcome that obstacle. And if worst case scenario, have somebody else read it over before you send it if you think it might come across wrong. Make sure that you are not opening any, when we're sending an email, we'll continue sending. Send the email, complete sentences, complete thoughts. Make sure that you're replying versus reply all. Okay, reply means that it's only going to the person who sent it. Reply all means it's going to everyone who's on that actual email list. Big difference. So make sure that if it's only a response needed for the original sender, only reply. Typically, reply is your best friend. All right. If you need to include others on the list, or if you are sending it to a large grouping, use the BCC option. That is blind carbon copy, and it makes it so all of those email addresses don't get in the top piece. So if you're sending it to a large group of people, use the BCC option. And that way too, if you use BCC, it can't be replied all to you. It only will come back to you. When you're responding to emails, do so professionally within 24 to 48 business hours, okay? So if it's over the weekend, you don't need to do that. Keep your work day separate from your personal life. Now, when it's verbal communication, right, we want to make sure that the tone that we're speaking in is respectful, polite, that we are avoiding any kind of discussions that would be inappropriate for the workplace or comments to people that would be inappropriate. Your tone is part verbal, part body language. So, a large percentage of what people hear is not actually said, all right? It's how you say it. So be very cognizant of your nonverbal communication patterns. If a conflict arises, address it immediately, directly with the person with whom that conflict happened, okay? So a good rule of thumb is that if somebody says something to you that comes across wrong or that was uncalled for or inappropriate, set a time to meet with them individually, by themselves, approach them confidently, but in a resolution fashion of, yesterday during our meeting, you said something that I felt was very inappropriate, and I wanted to address it now before it becomes an issue. Okay, attempt to resolve it as a conversation before it escalates. But if it needs to escalate, it needs to escalate. So talking to your supervisors, talking to human resources might be something that needs to happen, but I encourage you to try to address it individually first so that you're not causing issues, additional issues, or being seen as somebody who will take something to escalate something too quickly. Now, there's a lot of characteristics of the workplace, and I want you to be aware of some of those elements of our of different generations. So realizing that generations cause a lot of different ways of working. The context in which you live, the context in which you were raised, determines how you work, determines why you work, determines the values you work with. And so realizing that each generation does things a little differently, and that's okay. They will look at you as the technology generation, and you will look at them as the non-technology people, typically. That's how it's looked. Realize those are all stereotypes, of course, but how people operate is different. And so take a look at our generations page on our website. I'll show you, there's some very important elements of those generational differences that will definitely play a part. So, you might prefer to text message to get information across, whereas other generations may prefer to speak in person or to do an email, right? You may like to collaborate and be encouraged to have free time or a flexible work environment, whereas others feel very much more comfortable in that secure, timely work environment. So being aware of it and respectful of it. Use your first job as a chance to collect experiences as much as you can. All right, so get all of the trainings, take advantage of all professional development opportunities, join networking groups, volunteer to do things that you wouldn't normally think about, because it's a way to develop your own skill sets. And that's going to be what sells you for your new position. That's going to be what helps you figure out what you want to be known for. That's going to be what helps you figure out what your next position will be. And so definitely collect experiences, collect evidence of those experiences so that you can update your resume, that you can update your portfolio, and constantly be doing that along the way. Use the master list and update it with every position and experience you have. When we talked about that, setting goals for yourself, this is a great way to be collecting those experiences strategically. Have a goal set for yourself. It is said that those who set a goal are 50% more likely to actually achieve that goal. Okay, so just stating that it's a goal. You are 95% more likely to achieve a goal if it's not only stated, but you've expressed it to someone else and actually set an appointment to meet with that person to hold you accountable. So do that with a mentor, with a friend, a family member that you trust. Have them hold you accountable to that actual goal being achieved. And that's going to be what's going to be helpful in you going forward. So set a goal that is smart, very specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. So be specific, make it measurable, make it something that you can actually achieve, okay? Make it timely, so give yourself a timeline for that. Okay, so I know we're covering so much information today, and I know you're probably just sick of hearing me talk, but the things that I want to address, those are some of the myths that come into the workplace, like that you can decorate your office space however you want. Figure out the organization before you do that. All right. Understand what's common. Take a cue from the other people in the office or in the organization to determine if your space truly can be decorated the way you like. Try to avoid falling into bad habits, the gossip, the arriving late because someone else arrives late. If everyone else is doing it, it's probably okay is a common myth, and that is something that could really hurt you moving forward. Common myth, think that if you come in early, you can leave early. Not every company or organization operates that way. So know what is standard and get it clearly defined by your supervisors. Common myth to think that they want all of your ideas right now. I apologize, my dog is kind of whining in the background. They want you to observe before you get your ideas. All right. And another common myth is that you're in it alone. Realize that everybody who has come out of school, everyone who's taken a new job, who has transitioned into the workplace has gone through this, and it's scary and it's uncomfortable sometimes, but you will learn so much in that first year that you'll transition into your new position knowing. Also realize that once you go into a new role, typically you want to stay in your first job for at least a year. That's ideal. Well, 2, 3 years would be really ideal, but at least a year in that first job. And then you can transition to another job. Always be open to that next experience. And our office is here to help you with that. So the University Career Center will work with you up to 5 years after you graduate. So don't be afraid to reach out for that help, for that assistance in transitioning into your new role. After your first year, that's also when you should start thinking about or looking into what it would take to get a promotion or that next level. Find all that stuff out early. What do you need in order to get a promotion, get to that next level, and start building those along the way so that you are ready for that success when it's your time. And we're here to help. Get lots of great resources on our website at career.auburn.edu.